I grew up in a modest middle-class family in suburban Chicago. Life was pretty predictable back then. My father dedicated 27 years to the police force before he retired, and my mother, Nora, continues to work as an office manager at Lincoln Elementary. They did their best to provide for us, and although we weren't rich, I never felt we lacked anything important. I'm Hazel, though I was known by that name until I got married and became Hazel Reynolds. After earning a degree in accounting from college, I secured a position at Anderson & Partners, a well-established, mid-sized firm. The job paid well and offered consistent work. My daily routine was uneventful: wake up, work, return home, and repeat. That was until a fateful rainy day in October changed everything. I was in a hurry to grab my morning coffee from Starbucks when I accidentally bumped into Owen. In my rush, I spilled my coffee all over his expensive suit. Mortified, I began apologizing profusely, offering to cover the dry cleaning costs. To my surprise, he just laughed it off and suggested I could make it up to him by joining him for dinner that evening. That dinner led to many more, and soon, Owen became a significant part of my life. He was unlike anyone I had ever dated. He was the son of Hudson and Riley, the affluent owners of Reynolds Industries, a major manufacturing company in the Midwest. Despite his family's wealth, Owen never made me feel inferior. He appreciated that I came from a real family, as he put it. The dynamic shifted slightly when he introduced me to his parents at their expansive Lake Forest mansion. Riley scrutinized me as if I were an inconvenience, barely concealing her disdain. During dinner, when discussing my background, my father's career in law enforcement, and my mother's job at the school, she reacted as though they were outlaws, not hardworking, respectable people. Despite the chilly reception from his parents, Owen proposed 3 months later, and I accepted without a second thought. Our wedding was an affair of mixed emotions, attended by his parents who managed only to offer strained smiles and formal congratulations. After a beautiful honeymoon in Bali, we moved into a luxurious apartment in downtown Chicago. The apartment was spectacular, with sprawling views of Lake Michigan, a stark contrast to the simplicity of my childhood home. Life felt like a dream, especially when I discovered I was pregnant 2 months later. Owen was overjoyed, and even his parents seemed to warm up to the idea, though Riley backhandedly commented on the baby's good breeding on one side. We named our son Hudson Jr., Hudson for short, after his grandfather. He was born on a serene, snowy morning in December. Holding Hudson for the first time made all the hardships fade away. Riley's constant criticisms, the whispers at company parties about how an accountant had snagged the boss's son. All of it paled in comparison to the joy of being Hudson's mother. Those first couple of years were genuinely happy times. Owen embraced fatherhood wholeheartedly, often coming home early to spend time with Hudson and taking us out to the park on weekends. Despite the rocky start and ongoing challenges, those moments made everything worthwhile. Owen was prospering as the deputy chief manager at Reynolds Industries, while I juggled part-time accounting from home, caring for our son Hudson and managing the household. Riley and Hudson, my in-laws, weren't particularly fond of me, but they adored Hudson, lavishing him with pricey gifts and insisting on frequent visits. However, as Hudson approached his 3rd birthday, I noticed a shift. Owen started returning home increasingly late, citing intense work projects as his excuse, claiming they were too complex for me to understand. The man who once hurried home to spend time with his son now barely made it back for bedtime. Then, one windy Thursday, Riley arrived unexpectedly at our doorstep, her designer scarf unaffected by the gusts. "Explain why you missed the company's annual gala last night," she demanded, entering without an invitation. Confused, I replied, "What gala?" She accused me of feigning ignorance about the Reynolds Industries Anniversary Gala, a key event where Owen had told everyone I was unwell. That night, after Riley left, I stayed up waiting for Owen, who didn't return until 12:10 p.m. When I confronted him about the gala, he dismissively remarked that I wouldn't fit in with the sophisticated crowd of executives' wives who could effortlessly chat about art, wine, and vacation homes in the Hamptons. Feeling belittled, I expressed how he should be proud of me as his wife, not ashamed. Owen confessed that while my simplicity was once charming, his current status as a deputy chief manager required a spouse who could blend into more elite circles. I cried myself to sleep, hoping his stress was temporary and that our relationship would mend. But I feared our bond had suffered irreparable damage. The turning point came on a mundane Tuesday evening. Owen had texted that he'd be working late again, and during my usual cleaning, I noticed his laptop left open with his email visible. Driven by a gut feeling, I started reading an email chain between him and Stella, a new marketing executive at Reynolds. The messages revealed a hidden relationship, with mocking references to me as the village idiot and plans for continued liaisons. Heartbroken, I collected evidence of the affair, emails, messages, and photos of trips and gifts that were meant to be business-related. When Owen stumbled in at 6:27 a.m., disheveled and unkempt, I confronted him with the evidence. His reaction was one of mockery. He laughed and stated bluntly that I was never enough compared to Stella's sophistication and allure. This betrayal shattered the remnants of our strained relationship, revealing the depth of deception I had been subjected to. It had been a long while since he'd made an effort to dress well for me. Instead, he busied himself with other pursuits while I devoted myself to raising our son. Over coffee, as casual as if discussing the weather, he laid out his plans. "We'll stay married officially. It's better for my image at work," he declared. Stella was in on this arrangement, and he hinted, with a cruel smirk, that maybe he'd make time for me occasionally, if I was lucky. With my heart pounding and hands trembling, I packed some essentials and gently roused our son, who was soundly sleeping with his teddy bear. "We're going to stay with Grandma and Grandpa for a bit," I whispered. As we readied to leave, he watched from the doorway, taunting, "You'll come back. Where else could you go?" Ignoring his words, I took our son and left, tears streaming down my face as I drove to my parents' home. My mother, clad in her bathrobe, instantly understood the situation from my tear-streaked face and enveloped me in a comforting embrace. 3 days later, Riley, with a smug grin, delivered the divorce papers to my parents' doorstep. "I always knew you weren't good enough for my son," she sneered as she handed me the envelope. But the divorce was just the beginning. Owen was now seeking full custody of our son, with his lawyer painting me as an unfit mother, accusations that couldn't be further from the truth. During the custody hearing, his lawyer depicted me as unstable and jealous, allegations that felt like a slap in the face. Thankfully, I had gathered ample evidence. My lawyer presented emails between Owen and Stella, revealing his infidelity and his disdain towards me. The judge's demeanor shifted upon seeing the timestamps on the emails, proving that my reactions were based on his deceptions, not jealousy or instability. The judge ruled in my favor, granting me primary custody and assigning Owen limited visitation rights, along with a significant child support obligation. I returned to full-time work at an accounting firm, and my parents became indispensable, turning their golden years into dedicated grandparent duty. Life found a new, honest rhythm, devoid of the former chaos. One Saturday, a black Range Rover pulled up. Owen stepped out, sharply dressed, followed by Stella, who looked disdainfully around in her designer attire. "I'm here to see my son," Owen announced, barging past me. Stella's expression of distaste didn't falter as she followed him inside, marking yet another challenging chapter that lay ahead. She glanced around our cozy living room, its furnishings showing signs of wear but exuding comfort. Bursting into laughter, she scooped up one of my mother's treasured family photographs. "This place is a total wreck," she mocked. "It's like a doghouse." I bristled at her words. "Watch your language," I cautioned. She spun towards Owen, her voice dripping with disdain. "Owen, darling, you can't possibly think it's okay for your son to live here. And these people," she waved dismissively at my parents who stood stunned in the doorway, "they're not fit for this. They should be nowhere near raising a Reynolds heir." "Get out," I demanded, my voice quaking with anger. "Both of you, leave my parents' home now." Owen scoffed. "Or what?" "That's enough. Hazel," I declared, my patience frayed. "I'm not playing nice anymore. I'm taking Hudson, and I'm going to make sure you regret this." You think you've won in court? Just wait. I pushed them towards the door. Leave now. Come on, Owen, Stella cooed. This dump probably has fleas. As they drove off, I wrapped my arms around my parents. My mother was in tears, and my father's fists were clenched in barely restrained fury. Watching their car disappear, a new resolve solidified within me. Anger had replaced fear. The next evening, as I sat brooding over a cold cup of coffee, my dad joined me at the kitchen table. You know, sometimes the best defense is a good offense, he remarked. He mentioned Mike Sullivan, a former colleague turned crime analyst, renowned for his discretion and thoroughness. Stella's arrogance, her spiteful remarks about my family, and the relentless nasty emails she sent were all too much. That morning, she had mocked my LinkedIn photo. Look at this loser. Can't even dress properly. Owen's taunts were no better. His email from the previous day read, "Seeing you in that pitiful place, I remember why I left. Enjoy your poor life with your cop father. How much does Mike charge?" I found myself asking. 2 days later, I was in Mike Sullivan's office, a compact room downtown. Mike, a rugged man with gentle eyes, had known me since childhood. Despite trying to focus on work and Hudson, the harassment from Owen and Stella was relentless. Then Mike called urgently. "You need to see this in person," he insisted. In his office, he handed me a thick file. First off, he began, "Stella isn't her real name. She's been using her sister's identity. Her real name is Stella." As I flipped through the file, my hands trembled. Before her role at Reynolds Industries, Carla had been an escort, hopping from one wealthy man to another, living off their fortunes until they grew weary of her or uncovered her minor frauds. She'd assumed various aliases in different cities, always vanishing before suspicions arose. But her activities at Reynolds Industries were far more insidious. Mike pointed to bank statements. She's been draining funds from company accounts, little by little, avoiding detection. He then showed me screenshots of emails. She's also been leaking confidential company info to your biggest competitors. Details about product launches, merger plans, everything. This revelation marked a turning point, transforming my resolve into action against the deceit threatening my family's future. I leaned back, my thoughts racing about the enigmatic and seemingly flawless Stella. It turned out she was nothing more than a swindler who had not only ensnared my husband, but had also weaseled her way into the heart of the Reynolds dynasty. Mike revealed more shocking details as he pulled out yet another folder. Remember the massive contract Reynolds Industries lost last month? The one that cost them millions. He paused, his eyes darkening. Stella leaked the bidding details to a rival company 3 days before the submission deadline. I meticulously collected all the proof I could find, making several copies. Yet, I refrained from exposing her immediately. I knew something Stella didn't. Timing is everything. The phone rang on a chilly Wednesday morning. Riley's voice, frosty as usual, conveyed a begrudging invitation. "Hazel, Hudson's 57th birthday bash is this Saturday," she stated, sounding as though she were planning a dental procedure rather than a celebration. "While we'd prefer this to be a family-only event, Hudson needs to attend his grandfather's birthday. And since he's too young to come by himself." Her voice trailed off, leaving the implication hanging in the air. I was only welcome as Hudson's chaperone, expected to fade into the background and avoid any embarrassment. Hudson's birthday party was as lavish as one might expect, with a mansion adorned in gold and crystal, waiters circulating with silver trays of champagne. Hudson and I entered to a sea of judgmental glances. "Oh, you made it," Riley remarked with a strained smile before beckoning Hudson over. I hovered near the appetizers, watching my son being flaunted like a trophy while the other guests either snubbed me or whispered furtively. Clutching Mike's file in my oversized purse, I waited. Then Owen entered, Stella on his arm, clad in a stunning red Valentino gown with diamonds sparkling at her ears. "Everyone," Owen called, tapping his glass for attention. "I have an announcement. This spring, Stella will join the Reynolds family as my wife." Riley immediately embraced her, proclaiming, "Finally, a woman worthy of our name. Harvard-educated, from an impeccable family. Hudson glanced my way with disdain. Under their praising eyes, Stella beamed. I'm so honored to be part of such a distinguished family and promise to be the wife Owen deserves. That was my cue. Standing firm, I interrupted. Speaking of what people deserve, I declared, my voice carrying across the room. I have something to disclose about your future, Mrs. Reynolds. Owen shot me a warning look. Don't cause a scene, Hazel. Ignoring him, I presented the first piece of evidence. Tell me, Stella, or should I call you Stella? How's your sister coping after you stole her identity? Stella's face paled. Riley demanded, what is this nonsense? I continued, did she forget to mention that she's been living under her sister's identity? The real Stella is a school teacher in Minnesota. This woman, I pointed at her, is Carla Larson, a former escort and con artist. I continued to uncover more shocking revelations. Bank records revealed that she had been siphoning funds from Reynolds Industries. Then, there were the emails that left no doubt. She had been betraying the company by leaking secrets to Wagner Manufacturing and Collins Corp for months. When Hudson grabbed the documents from me, his face fell. The Wagner deal, the Collins merger, it was you all along. I can explain, Stella stammered, retreating as Owen's expression darkened menacingly. The real Stella, I declared, unable to hide my satisfaction, has a colorful past. 7 cities, 7 wealthy men, 7 scams. And it looks like Reynolds Industries was set to be her next victim. A hush fell over the room as they absorbed the evidence. Owen looked baffled, Riley horrified, and Hudson's anger escalated by the second. Stella's facade cracked, and the once elegant birthday celebration descended into chaos. Hudson, his face reddening with fury, sifted through the damning documents. Get out, he roared at Stella, who was desperately trying to concoct excuses. Leave my house before I call the police. But Hudson, darling, she pleaded, reaching for his arm, these are all lies. I can explain everything. Explain, he thundered, waving the documents at her. Explain how you sabotaged the Wagner deal, a contract worth $10 million? And Collins, our biggest rival. You've been feeding them our secrets. Riley, who had been silently reading through the records, looked up with icy disdain. You common fraud, she spat out. You thought you could deceive your way into our families? Stella edged towards the door, her designer heels clicking against the marble. Owen, baby, tell them it's not true, she pleaded. But Owen was pale, staring at the photos of Stella with various affluent men. If you're not off my property in 27 seconds, Hudson threatened quietly, I'm calling the cops, and believe me, you'll be seeing our lawyers. Stella hurried out as Hudson then turned to his son. The guests might have appeared engrossed in their champagne, but all eyes were on them. You brought this woman into our company, Hudson accused Owen, gave her access to sensitive information just because you liked her looks? Dad, I had no idea, Owen protested. That's just it, you didn't know. Didn't bother to check, thinking with everything but your brain, Hudson snapped. You're fired, Owen. Clear out your office by tomorrow. And the apartment you're in? Company property. Find somewhere else. Riley, unusually quiet until now, turned to me. Hazel, she said, her voice laced with real emotion for the first time, we owe you a massive apology. You've saved our company from untold damage. Hudson nodded in agreement. We were wrong about you, very wrong. You've proven yourself truly deserving of the Reynolds name, unlike others. 3 days later, Stella was arrested at O'Hare Airport, trying to flee to the Cayman Islands. The evidence I had collected, along with what Reynolds Industries lawyers had uncovered, was irrefutable. After the revelation at Hudson's birthday party, everything changed. It's been 6 months, and I now live in a simpler apartment, less lavish than the one I shared with Owen, but ideal for Hudson and me. The Reynolds family gifted it to us, a gesture of gratitude for exposing Stella's deceitful plots. It's the least we could do, Hudson had remarked as he handed me the keys, acknowledging the ordeal. The apartment is nestled in a family-friendly neighborhood near reputable schools. Hudson's room bursts with superhero posters, and my modest home office offers a serene park view. Unlike the ostentatious penthouse, This place truly feels like home. Owen, now in California, maintains his bond with Hudson, calling every Monday at 8 p.m. Their chats are brief. Hudson is young and not much for long conversations, but Owen's effort to stay connected as a father, despite the distance, is clear. He never asks to speak to me, and I'm at peace with that. Some relationships are better left in the past. Life has taken a turn with the Reynolds as well. Riley visits weekly, bringing gifts not just for Hudson but for me too, like the stunning orchid last week. In a surprising turn of events, Hudson and Riley hosted a dinner for my parents. The last encounter at my wedding had highlighted our different backgrounds, but this time, the atmosphere was warm and inclusive. Hudson showed a genuine interest in my father's police stories, while Riley and my mother bonded over gardening tips. Nora, Riley addressed my mother warmly as the evening concluded. "You and FY have raised a remarkable daughter. I'm sorry we didn't see it sooner." My mother, with her inherent dignity, simply replied, "Sometimes, it takes others a while to catch up." Though life is far from perfect, I find solace in the moments I spend with my son and his grandparents. Watching Hudson healthy and happy is a constant reminder that we're going to be all right. Recently, Hudson came across an old wedding photo of Owen and me. "Do you miss Daddy?" he asked innocently. I sat next to him, pulling him close. Sometimes, I admit it, but life doesn't always follow our plans. It often goes wrong before it goes right. The important thing is to stay true to who you are. Later, as I tucked him into bed, I reflected on our journey, from being the overlooked accountant to becoming the woman who saved the Reynolds company. Life's happy endings aren't always what you expect. Sometimes, they are even better.